Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It is 3 p.m. on Wednesday, June 9th, 2021, and almost 3 p.m. New York time. Hope you're doing great and had a good week so far. What I want to do in this video, guys, is a little bit different. As you know, I've been presenting a lot of different ways that you can trade some of these kind of classic technical setups. So what I want to do today is kind of bring in, again, a nice, simple, well-tested technical strategies and show you several examples. And again, guys, I'm not breaking any new ground here, but there are some things to always keep in mind as you look for these trades, because if you're not careful, you will definitely overtrade and, find setups that really are not good and not in line with the longer trend or the fundamentals or what have you. Okay, so just keep that in mind as we go through some of this. This might be a little bit longer, but I'm going to show you several examples, and I hope you just stick with it, and certainly watch parts of it again if you need to. Ask questions in the comments afterwards, and I hope you enjoy it. So for the sake of this video, we're going to pretty much ignore the MACD down here, which I know I've been made a lot of videos on. We essentially just going to ignore that for the sake of this video. So there's basically two components to this, and they're very closely related. It's just simple trend line breaks and what they call Wolfe waves. And I'm not going to go into what Wolfe waves are. If you go on YouTube and you just search Wolfe wave, you're going to find all kinds of videos that talk about what Wolfe waves are. These first two are actually really good, and kind of just show you the basics. The rest of these are kind of people's interpretations of them. This one's not bad either. Some of them are not great because they take a little bit too much liberty with some of the rules. So I won't go into what Wolfe waves are, but they're actually very closely related to Elliott wave, what we call an Elliott wave ending diagonal. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, I do still like to use Elliott wave. I don't use it exclusively. But I find what a Wolfe wave is in most cases, especially in a trending market, is what we call an ending diagonal, which is basically, if you see like in this one, where price is in a downtrend, in the last, let's go to the chart here. I'll just draw. So let's say you have, a trend, a downtrend, and then as you're getting towards the end of the downtrend, you kind of see this type of thing, where the market is making new lows, but as it's coming down, these waves are starting to overlap. Okay, 1 2 3 1 2 3 4. So here's your 1 2 3 4 5. So you get the last part of that trend where, yes, you're making lower lows and lower highs, but the waves are overlapping. And that's kind of what a Wolfe wave, a great Wolfe wave setup looks like you see in this one right here. Okay, where you see those last 5 waves down, but they're overlapping. So again, if you Google either Wolfe waves, or go on YouTube or Google Wolfe wave or Elliott wave ending diagonals or leading diagonals, you'll see what I'm talking about. But that's how I look at Wolfe waves. But they can be really effective in signaling a potential turn in the market. Okay, so I'm going to show you actually what I think is a perfect one, and this is a very infrequently traded pair. I actually am in a position in this. So this is the EURZAR, and again, this is a very infrequently traded pair. It's a very high pip value pair. And it does trend, as you can see. So, but it's just not one that people look at very often. I certainly don't. This is actually the first time I've ever traded it. But basically, we got a perfect Wolfe wave here, at least in the setup. So when you come down here, you've got basically, here's your wave 1. So it starts to come down. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and the key to a Wolfe wave is that, especially in this kind of narrowing down wedge, you can see how the range is becoming more narrow in between these two trend lines. When you get down to that wave 5, you get this false breakout, and you can see this on any time frame. This is a daily time frame, so this makes this really powerful. And you get that the end of that last push down, it breaks out and it grabs all these people short that are looking for breakouts below the trend line. And you get all these people that go short, and then the big traders turn around and send this thing up higher. And when price closes back inside the trend line, the lower trend line, that you could potentially take a long. So really the entry would have been at the close of this first candle inside the trend line. I probably wouldn't have counted this one. But this is essentially your long right here. And this is really a perfect Wolfe wave setup. You're in the context of a larger downtrend, but this is, you know, heading down. Boom, it makes a new low, breaks below the trend line in this case in a downtrend, and traps all of the bears in here that trade this breakout, and then they send it higher. And then there's a couple of ways you can take profit on this. The more aggressive way on a Wolfe wave is you connect the low, in this case the low of wave 1 to the high of wave 4, which is right here. That's this line. And potentially price can get all the way back up into this area. That is a potential long-term target. The other thing you can do is put a 200 period moving average on there, and that's a little bit less aggressive. Well, in this case it's more aggressive, so I probably would go with this. Sometimes you'll find the moving average lower, so it just depends what your setup is. You can see I didn't even have the 200 on here, so I didn't know. But so in pure Wolfe wave, you know, profit setting, this is called an EPA line, estimated price arrival. And so this is approximately where price will go, and you will see sometimes that it hits this exactly. Now, of course, what's going to happen is, for sure, I can tell you, this is going to get up to this trend line right here somewhere, and you're going to run into resistance. And you know, if it's a valid Wolfe wave, it eventually will bust right through there and keep going. But this is where a lot of people get scared out of these trades, because it hits that upper trend line. It's clearly going to run into resistance and some selling pressure there, and we'll have to see what happens. But it's not there yet. It's probably going to take a little time to get there. If we look at a shorter time frame, we still got a ways to go. Okay, so this is kind of a classic Wolfe wave, all right? And again, I won't go into it because you can find plenty of resources online about what Wolfe waves are. I would also encourage you to read up briefly on what an Elliott wave ending diagonal or an Elliott wave leading diagonal, which are very similar to Wolfe waves. Okay, especially if you like trading Elliott wave, you should definitely explore Wolfe waves because of this. But you got to be really dedicated to letting these patterns play out. You know, although this might have been a good trade either way, if you know, like, you could have traded any of these bounces. You could have traded this one, even though it's in a downtrend. You could have traded any of these bounces up to the upper trend line. But the fact that this one broke through and then came back is really a good potential setup for a breakout above this upper trend line. Okay, so we'll see how it goes. And maybe I'll make another video in several days once this thing plays out and see where we're at. Okay, so that's a Wolfe wave. But it's very similar to support and resistance in terms of, you know, you find these areas on the chart where there's obvious channels where price is trading inside of defined trend lines, and that's really a good way to find it. I always recommend you do it in the direction of the trend, of the larger trend, like off the daily chart preferably, and I'll show you a couple more examples. So here's the Swiss yen. Here's another one, and I'll zoom in a tiny bit. This is the daily chart. Now this is an interesting one because you can see price was going up and clearly on the daily was in an uptrend. Every time it tagged this lower trend line, it bounced again. And then we had this. So this is essentially a potential bearish Wolfe wave, because price went up, and then you can see right here it closed outside of the upper trend line. So what I just showed you on the EURO-ZAR was a bullish Wolfe wave. This is essentially a bearish one. Price breaks above. You can see all the on the way up here. It would try to break out, but would end up closing below this trend line with these wicks. On here, we got a definitive close, so it traps all these longs. Right? If people wait for this breakout, they go long up here, and then boom, they get caught. Now, I haven't done it, but let's put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's say this is the, so if this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's put, let's draw a line. Okay, now in this case, it price never got near here. So let's also put a 200 period EMA on here. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. So that wouldn't have really have helped us in this case, but this is really another bearish Wolfe wave. So so you can either play this a couple of different ways. You can either, when you see this form, you have to be really leery about this, especially if you've got 5 waves. And you know, that's, like I said, one of the rules with Wolfe waves is you've got to have this, you know, you've got to have 5 defined waves. Preferably they're going to be all about the same length and time. They don't have to be, but if you're going to really follow the rules, each one of them should cover about the same amount of distance, should take about the same amount of time. And of course you can trade this all the way up long. The market's clearly in an uptrend. But I'm just talking about concentrating in this area. It breaks out and then we fall back. Now you can see what happened in this case. We came down, we closed. We did get a close, this one candle just outside the trend line, and then price, the uptrend resumed. Now, so you may want to have shorted this, you know, up in here. But if you go to a shorter time frame and you look at this downtrend, you look at that area. So here's that breakout below the trend line that we saw on the daily. And if you just look at these candles, you know, this is not impulsive. You got a green, you got alternating green, red, green, red, green, red. So there's a lot of conflict in here. It's not like it's 1 or 2 really bullish red candles down to indicate a strong breakout. So although you see the break below the trend line on the longer time frame, you've got to go down and look at how these candles look. And this is not impulsive. And then you can see you've got what, about 9 candles making up this little break. And it was completely erased in 3 bullish candles that brought price back up inside here. So although this may or may not count as a textbook Wolfe wave, because we didn't get down to a profit target we would expect, we do have price action here that is suggestive that an uptrend is going to continue, and that's what we saw. And we can see price did finally break back up, and is probably going to go up. Now it's retesting this high again, so I'm not sure how much more has got to go, but I'll keep an eye on it. It could be opportunities if we retest the trend line again. But I wanted to just kind of point out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 break above, all right, signaling a potential Wolfe wave. Price did come down. We didn't get back to a profit target, but if you want to be conservative and say, you know, just, you know, back to the trend line, that's a pretty good sign that you're probably going to have a substantial pullback here, and you can, you know, definitely bank some pips, and then you know, watch to see what happens after that. Okay, so this is more of kind of a support and resistance play with a potential Wolfe wave here, but it's not a great one because it didn't hit the profit target, the EPA line. However, from an Elliott wave standpoint, it's a great. I'm gonna delete this EPA line. From an Elliott wave standpoint, this is a good trade because this is an ABC correction, ABC, and then the uptrend resumes. And you could have played it on the break of this trend line on the smaller short time frame. It breaks this trend line and you go long, or you could just as soon as you get a close back inside here, you can trade it again. So ABC, correction, uptrend resumes. Aggressively, you can go long right in here, or if not, you wait till up in here when you break this correction trend line, and then keeps going. Okay, so this is why I prefer Elliott wave analysis over Wolfe waves, because the Wolfe wave doesn't always play out the way it should. But anytime you see this, you know, where it breaks out of a channel, either an uptrend or a downtrend, in that fifth wave position, you can clearly count 5 waves, and you get a break, in this case above the trend line, you should be very cautious about taking this breakout trade, because there's a very good chance it's going to reverse, at least for a period of time, which is exactly what it did here. Okay, so don't get sucked into these. Pound yen. Okay, so here's another potential Wolfe wave on a pound yen. Move this a little bit. Now, we didn't really get a break above, so again, this is more an Elliott wave trade than a Wolfe wave trade, but I did want to point one thing out. So here we are on the 4-hour chart. You can see it on the daily too, but we'll go to the 4-hour. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. Tag the upper trend line. We did not get a break above, so that's why this doesn't really constitute a Wolfe wave. But look at the correction. ABC, correction, ABC. And if we draw the EPA line, assuming this was a Wolfe wave, we hit it exactly. From the high of wave 1 across the low of wave 4, extended out. Look where price came right to it. And it's also confluence for an ABC pattern for Elliott wave correction. So my bias on the pound yen is definitely to the upside. As long as we don't, even if this came down a little bit more, I'd be willing to let it come down to about this area. But I'd like to see it hold this trend line, because it looks pretty symmetrical ABC pattern. But I would allow it to come back down to this area, which is still a pretty big drop on the 4-hour chart. But I'm going to be looking for basically bullish price action from here, and we might have it right now. So here's the 1-hour chart. Came down, challenged this trend line. We had this big bullish candle, and now we've retraced again back. So really, you could say as long as we hold this price area right here, although you could go down to here, as long as we hold this area, even if this retraces 100% back to this low, this is still a good potential long setup. And really, it's a very low risk long. I mean, you potentially could take this long right now. Just take this at market, put your stop a few pips below here, and even if it comes back a little bit more, you still should be okay. And it's a very low risk trade. I mean, from here, if you went long right now, this is only a 20 pip stop loss on the pound yen. It doesn't really get much better than that on a pair like this. Okay, so there's a potential long setup on the pound yen. You have the 5 waves up, a 3-wave move back. It actually has a little bit of confluence with a Wolfe wave target, and potential price action on the hourly chart to resume the uptrend. Okay. Definitely watch the pound yen. If you're not already in this trade, I would put the pound yen on a strong watch list for a buy. Okay, the pound kiwi, I'm actually in a long right now, just sitting at about break even, as you can see. And this is really not a Wolfe wave. This is basically just a just a trend line bounce. So we have a 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm thinking this is going to go up, probably go back and hit this trend line up here again, and so that's where my profit target is. And I took the long on this bullish engulfing candle, and you can see it's not doing much, but it's the time of day where it's really not going to do anything. So my stop is below this swing right here. If it does break, I'm not interested in staying in this anymore, but I think that should be a pretty good stop loss. And this is the pound kiwi. Okay, so that's another one. And again, we have an uptrend in place on the daily chart. Now, obviously on the daily chart, these would have been great places to get into this trade. Well, here's the start of the uptrend, but right here, anywhere in here, back here. But obviously, if you missed it on the daily, then you can go to a shorter time frame and look for these pullbacks on the shorter time frame and draw in like a secondary trend line in the direction of the trend, which is this one. and look for pullbacks to this one if you miss these big daily entries, which again, the daily entries were all these back here. This is ideally where you wanted to get in, but you still have some opportunity on a shorter time frame. So draw in that secondary trend line, but put it in the direction of the trend. Okay, I'm a big believer in trading in the direction of the longer trend, mainly preferably off the daily chart, and in this case it's up. So I'm really only interested in pursuing long opportunities with this pair. Okay, but this is, you know, a trend line I drew based off the 4-hour chart, but you can see the longer term trend line on the daily chart. Okay, and we do have a big area of resistance up here, so I'm going to be realistic in my expectations of this trade. If I get back to that that horizontal green upper trend line, I'll be happy with that. Okay, so basically if we get up to about this area right here. All right, CAD yen. So this is still a work in progress. This could turn into a Wolfe wave. We basically have potentially a wave 5, maybe starting a 1, 2, 3, 4, up for 5. But either way, I think this is going to continue up. Okay, so we have this pull into the trend, so that's your wave 1, 2, here's your 3, ABC down for 4, up for 5. So my bias on the CAD yen is to the upside, at the very least, you know, back up to this upper trend line, you know, 80 or so pips away, and then we'll see what it looks like when it hits here. But either way, I think we'll see some kind of reversal, whether it's a big Wolfe wave reversal with a big pullback, or whether we come back down and, you know, have one of those moves like we saw in the Swiss yen, you know. But either way, my bias is up, so I will be looking for some bullish action on the hourly chart, and we kind of had it today, and then we pulled back in the afternoon session, which is not unusual. We came up, re-challenged this high, and basically, again, guys, as long as this low right here is held, then that bias is still intact. Okay, so even if price wants to come all the way back down to this area, I'm okay with that, and I'm still going to be looking for potential longs back up here on this particular pair. And the Canadian dollar also is relatively bullish right now fundamentally, so you would be trading in line with the fundamentals too. And obviously on the daily chart we're up. Now again, guys, look at the daily chart. We had this very strong move up. This was after the Bank of Canada came out very hawkish last month, and you can see now we're into this, you know, what I consider to be a potential ending diagonal Elliott wave, where we're having 5 waves in this last position overlapping. That's why I'm still bullish on this for now. But once this move up to back up to this trend line is completed, I will become much more bearish on this pair. But for now, I maintain a bullish bias until this proves out back up to the upper end of this trend line, wherever it ends up hitting, like I said, 80, 100 pips away. But then I will be looking for bearish price action and potentially a Wolfe wave breakout above this upper trend line. But again, whether you want to call it a Wolfe wave or an ending diagonal Elliott wave, it's the same thing. It's essentially the same thing. Okay, so, but again, always in the direction of the trend. EURCAD, this is just, you know, again, the EURCAD's been kind of range trading. But if you're looking for a trade, you know, again, simply looking at most recent price action and saying, you know, these are potential opportunities to take long positions. I'm not going to really belabor this one too much, because on the daily chart there's really no trend at all right now. But if you're looking for short-term trading opportunities just by using trend line bounces, you can find these anywhere on pretty much any time frame. And again, you should try to always do it in the direction of the longer-term trend. In this case, there really is no trend on the long-term time frame, the daily. So, but these are opportunities to trade just simple technical bounces within these two trend lines. Obviously, there's no trade here right now, but I just wanted to show you this one. Euro Swiss. Euro Swiss is an interesting one. So we have this this downtrend in place here, and I'm essentially looking at this as a potential Wolfe wave, but if not, the end of a correction before an uptrend resumes. So I'm not going to trade this right now. I am waiting for this price to hopefully get back down and touch this lower trend line, and I'd love to see it break below, kind of like what I showed you with the EURZAR. Love to see that break just below here and then trap the bears on a breakout and then turn and go back up and resume this longer uptrend. And this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we had an Elliott wave uptrend, and I'm not going to really get into Fibonacci. I'm not a real big fib trader, but if we put a Fibonacci on here, this retrace would correlate to about the 61.8 retracement. So if you just want to get an idea of where it might go, but either way, I'm looking for this price to get back down, tag this trend line again, and then I'll be watching this very closely for potential resumption of the uptrend. Now, it's probably not going to happen this week. This is a daily chart. Maybe it will, but you know, sometime over the coming days, this will finish out this pattern, and then I'll be looking for bullish price action from somewhere in this area right here. Okay, so I put the Euro Swiss on a watch list. There's no trade there right now, at least, you know, not on the time frames I look at, but there is a good potential long-term opportunity developing on the Euro Swiss in the coming days. All right, what else? Got a few more here, maybe. Euro Yen. So Euro Yen, again, another kind of Wolfe wave completion. So here's the 1, here's the 4. We had this uptrend, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We had it come up, okay. We had this little breakout right here. Again, either way, whether you want to consider this a Wolfe wave or just an ending diagonal Elliott wave, here was the completion right up here, wave 5. And then look, we drew the EPA line. In this case, it tagged it perfectly, right? You do it from the high of wave 1 to the low of wave 4 in an uptrend, and look where it came right to. And that has confluence with this daily trend line, okay, which is what this outer trend line is. This is a daily trend line. And so, and now we've presumably resumed the uptrend here, which you can clearly see on the daily chart. This is probably a wave 5 going up on the daily chart. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll probably go up, make a new high. You know, I would say this move up probably will go at least a couple hundred pips off this low. So probably will definitely go up and make a new high. Okay, as you can see, daily chart long down to the 4-hour. You can see the Wolfe wave or the ending diagonal inside these trend lines. Okay, gets up here after the end of that 5th wave. The 5th wave is the important part, guys. You should be able to clearly see 5 waves. Okay, if you don't, if it's not clear, don't trade it. Don't even bother. Just move on to something else. You can see the 5th wave. This is your sign that if nothing else, you're going to get a pullback, at least back to the trend line again. In this case, because it was a 5th wave, it was a much bigger pullback. It broke below the trend line. It actually filled out to an EPA line for a Wolfe wave, but it also hit daily support on the daily chart, and now we had bullish price action, a bullish engulfing candle, and price is heading back up, and I'm sure this will go up and make a new high from here. Okay, so that's the Euro Yen, and you could potentially go to like an hourly chart and look for entries if you missed this already. You know, there's no trade right now, but yeah, you can maybe start to put shorter trend lines on an hourly chart and look for pullbacks to take this thing long. So but there's no trade right at the moment. So what else? Euro pound. Okay, so Euro pound, again, not really a good textbook Wolfe wave, but essentially you've got a 1, 2, 3, oh, excuse me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we had the pull back off of it. We had the bounce off of here. And if you connect again the EPA line, which if you're connecting in a downtrend, it's the low of wave 1 to the high of wave 4. When price is going up, it's the opposite. It's the high of wave 4 to the high of 1 to the low of 4. But in a downtrend, it's the low of 1 through the high of 4. So now we did break out above this trend line. So there is a target basically, somewhere in this area. So ideally, what this is supposed to mean is when price goes up and touches this EPA line, that's when you exit the trade. Okay, so let's see where this goes. Again, you could look for pullbacks on this on the hourly chart, or shorter and look for pullbacks. This isn't very far. I mean, this probably is only going to go another maybe 40 pips, but hey, it's 40 pips. The euro pound's not a big pip maker. Well, let's see where this goes. So this is euro pound. There really is no trend on the daily chart, so this is really just kind of a speculative technical trade, because there really is no trend, active trend on the daily chart. All right, so we can keep going. So here is the euro dollar, and you can see I just entered a short, and we'll see where this goes. And it's a pretty low risk trade. This is the hourly chart, but if we zoom out a little bit, we can see a potential Wolfe wave here that formed on this pair. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see on the breakout of the wave 5 right here, broke above the trend line, actually went up and made a new high, or tried to make a high, not a new high, went up, made a high, and then you can see this candle ended up closing back inside the trend line, this red candle. Okay, whoops, that's an up arrow, we want a down arrow. So this candle right here came up, tried to make a high, and then closed back inside the trend line. So this is a potential bearish Wolfe wave. Okay, and so I followed the rules. I waited for it to close back inside, and now I'm short. It's a very low risk trade. I probably should move this stop up to above that wick, but I'm pretty much okay with where it is. This is the euro dollar. It's a very it's a 1 pip spread. So I'm not really worried about getting stopped out of this based on spread anyways. And for an EPA line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we go from the top of 1 to the low of 4. So if this turns out to be a Wolfe wave, then our target would be somewhere, down in this area here. Okay, so we'll see where it goes. So that's another one I'm actually in right now. It's potentially, depending where it ends up, 100 to 150 pips maybe. Again, what's always going to happen, what's going to be tough with these trades is if this does go down, it's going to come down and hit this trend line, and we'll see what happens when it hits the trend line. Okay, if I get really strong bullish action off this trend line, I probably would exit it at that point. But if it's just chops around, it looks like there's no real buying pressure, then I'll leave it, and hopefully I get another push down. And I'll be looking for an Elliott wave pattern on the way down, a 5 wave down back to this area. Okay, so there's euro dollar, live trade right now. Potential Wolfe wave set up, bearish Wolfe wave. Okay, and I got 2 more. Aussie dollar. So here's Aussie dollar. This one is a potential bullish Wolfe wave, where we had the 5 waves down, a break below. Now this one's well in advance. The entry was back here, and you can see what happens. Price comes back up, hits the upper trend line, and now is bouncing. So I'm not in this trade, but I'm going to watch it anyways. If you draw the EPA line, here's the target up here. Okay, but if you put a 200 period moving average on this, I only know because I did this before, you can see price, here's the 200 EMA, price went right to that. So this is another more conservative exit on this trade, back to the trend line, 200 period EMA. Now I wouldn't be surprised if this is an ABC and we turn and go back up, but I'll be watching this. But this is a minimum target, but you got to get in at the right place, which would have been way back here, certainly not up here. You know, you would have gotten in back here. If you had taken this all the way up, it's still 100 pips, even on a 4-hour chart. This is 100 pips in between here, and this potentially could turn and keep going. And if it turns and keeps going, if you had gotten in from back here and ends up going all the way, you could be talking about, you know, 140 pips. So let's watch the Aussie dollar. I'm probably not going to be taking this trade, but I am going to watch it. So okay, and the last one is the Kiwi dollar. On the Kiwi dollar, I am looking for a potential move back to the upside, and this is a just simple trend line break, trend line bounce. We have, this is the daily chart. We have all these bounces. This was an entry here. We had another one here, and now we're back again after this ABC correction. We're sitting right back here again. Had a bullish candle up, and now we're coming back to retest this one more time. So basically, there's two ways you could trade this. Now, the lowest risk trade would have been to get in back here. Now that it's gone up, I'm going to wait and see what happens. And as long as price doesn't, you know, breach this area right here, then I consider this uptrend intact. So I'm going to wait for price to come back down, probably retest this trend line. I'll be looking for bullish price action back up to potentially take a more conservative approach on this one is if you go to the 4-hour and you can connect this inside trend line, is to wait for price to get back, you know, up above here, and then take the long once it breaks this trend line. So but either way, it just kind of depends what your bias is on this pair. But the daily trend is up. Okay, so you can either, like I said, look for a long position basically anywhere in here, bullish price action, or wait for it to break. I've got this inside this little smaller trend line drawn here, right, and look for this to break it back. And either way, that'll put you in a nice spot for potential long, you know, at least back to this high, which is, you know, a couple hundred pips away. So either way, I think it's a good opportunity, but I'm not ready to I didn't take it back here, and I'm not ready to take it right now. So all right, so those are the examples I want to show you guys. We're going on 37 minutes here, so a little bit long, but there's lots of examples here. And again, you know, it really has to do with trading bounces off trend lines in the direction of the trend, specifically hopefully the daily trend. If there is no trend on the daily chart, my advice would be either to not trade that pair at all, or if you want to trade it, look for bounces, you know, inside the consolidation area on, say, the 1 to 4 hour chart, kind of like we were looking at here with the EURCAD. Okay, if you want to trade this, okay. Or just stay out of it because there's no trade. But we looked at, you know, trend line bounces in the direction of the trend. We looked at Elliott wave ending diagonals, which are also very similar to Wolfe waves. You really can trade them either way. It's pretty much the same rules between the Wolfe wave and the Elliott wave ending diagonal. The only difference is the Wolfe wave, you'll get that definitive break either above in a bearish Wolfe wave, you'll get a bullish break above the upper trend line that ends up reversing, or in a bullish Wolfe wave, you get the break below the trend line and then it ends up going up. Whereas with the Elliott wave ending diagonal, the price for all 5 waves pretty much is going to be contained inside the 2 trend lines. But other than that, the rules are pretty much the same. You got to have a clear 5 waves. That you want to see them kind of overlapping. Preferably you want to see them all about the same length, but as long as it's clear and you can identify 5 waves going into that last move, that's really all you need. And then just, you know, look for opposite, you know, a reversal off the end of that 5th wave. And if it's a Wolfe wave ending 5th wave, you have potential for it to go a lot further. But even if it's an Elliott wave ending diagonal, you still are probably going to have a pretty significant pullback in, you know, back across the other trend line, as we were seeing like on the Swiss yen. Oops, not that one. This is my like we were seeing here, right? 5 waves, we broke below, and then we resumed the uptrend. Okay. So anyways, guys, I hope that helps. Any questions, comments? I know it was a long video. Please leave them down below. Hit that like button, please, if nothing else, so that it helps the YouTube algorithms. Hit that subscribe button if you're just finding the channel, and hit that bell notification below so you get notified when I post the new video. And again, if you have any questions, comments, you want me to review any other pairs or anything I covered here, just leave them in the comments below. And I look forward to speaking to you guys again soon, and we'll do an update on a couple of these ones we just talked about today, and see where we're at. All right, take care, guys. Have a good rest of the day.